She laughed when she pressed post, the sound light and careless, as if nothing sharp had just been released into the world. I read her words on my phone in the quiet of my kitchen, and something in me folded in on itself. Please stay with this story for a moment. Read it slowly. Listen carefully, because it begins with a small cruelty that feels harmless and ends somewhere none of us expect. My name is Eleanor Finch. I was 46 then, living in a narrow terraced house on the edge of Reading, the kind with creaking stairs and a garden that only caught the sun if you were patient. I worked as a library assistant 3 days a week, shelving books, helping children find stories, guiding pensioners to the large print section. It was honest work, gentle work. It paid enough to keep the lights on and the kettle boiling. My niece, Poppy Harrow, was 22. She lived in London, studying fashion marketing, always moving between cafes and internships, her life a neat grid of filtered images. She had a way of speaking that sounded confident, even kind, but often landed like a soft slap. She was my sister's only child, and the center of her world. The post appeared on a Thursday evening, a picture of a family gathering the weekend before. We were all there, squeezed around my sister's dining table. I wore my usual navy coat, bought second-hand, carefully brushed. Poppy stood beside me in a bright designer jacket, one arm draped loosely around my shoulder. The caption read, "Taking my poor aunt out again. One day I'll teach her how to shop properly, family bless her." It didn't tag me, but friends sent it anyway. "Is this okay?" one asked gently. Another simply wrote, "I'm sorry." I stared at the word poor, not poor as in lacking warmth or care or meaning, poor as in less than. I felt myself shrink inside my cardigan. At Sunday lunch a week later, Poppy spoke about it as if it were nothing. "It was just a joke, Aunt Ellie," she said, waving her fork. "Everyone knows you don't care about labels." "I don't," I replied quietly, "but I do care about being laughed at." She rolled her eyes, not cruelly, just impatiently. "You're too sensitive." My sister Maureen said nothing. She poured more gravy. That night, I lay awake listening to the hum of the fridge, feeling foolish for letting a few words hurt me so deeply. But words have weight. They sit where you place them. Me deleting the app from my phone, not in anger, but in a tired kind of sadness. I did not know then that this was only the beginning. Once you've been named something in public, it follows you quietly. I noticed it in the way Poppy spoke to me after that. Not directly unkind, never openly cruel, but edged with amusement, as though I were a character she'd invented. When we met for coffee near the station, she'd glance at my shoes and say, "You know, there's a sale on proper leather ones at Selfridges." When I mentioned my library job, she smiled indulgently. "It's sweet that you're happy with that." At first I laughed along. It was easier. I told myself she was young, finding her place. I reminded myself that I loved her. I'd held her as a baby, sung her to sleep when my sister needed rest, but the jokes multiplied online. Screenshots sent by well-meaning friends showed captions like, "When your aunt thinks Primark is posh." There were laughing emojis, hearts, hundreds of likes. Poppy believed she was harmless. She told herself she was just being honest, just being funny. In her world, visibility mattered. Attention was currency, and I, without intending to be, had become content. At home, I folded laundry with a tight chest. At work, I found myself recommending books about resilience, about dignity, without quite knowing why. I didn't confront her again. I didn't ask her to stop. There was a part of me that felt it would be undignified to plead for basic respect. Meanwhile, Poppy's confidence grew. Brands noticed her. Invitations came. She cared about money as if it were an idea rather than a necessity. "Once you're in," she said, tapping her phone, "everything just flows." She spoke often about independence, about not needing anyone, about how she'd never be stuck. I listened, nodding, stirring my tea. What she didn't see was how her words settled into me, how they made me smaller in my own eyes. She didn't see me standing in front of my wardrobe, suddenly ashamed of clothes that had served me well. She didn't see me hesitate before answering the question, "What do you do?" She thought herself justified. She was telling the truth. She believed I was poor, or at least that's how it looked. An invitation arriving through the post, a glossy card announcing Poppy's graduation showcase. "Dress to impress," it said. I placed it on the mantelpiece and wondered whether I belonged there at all. Life rarely changes with a bang. It shifts quietly, like a tide you only notice once your feet are wet. The library announced funding cuts. My hours were reduced. I took on evening shifts at a local care home, serving meals, holding hands. It was tiring, but there was dignity in it. People thanked me. They looked me in the eye. Poppy, meanwhile, began to falter. Not dramatically, just small things. An internship that didn't turn into a contract. A brand that stopped replying. Rent rising. She laughed it off at first. "It's all part of the grind," she said. Her posts changed. Less luxury, more vague quotes about hustle and patience. The jokes about me slowed, then stopped. I thought perhaps she'd grown bored. Then Maureen called one evening, her voice tight. "Poppy's a bit stressed," she said. "She might need to stay with you for a few days, just until things settle." I agreed without hesitation. Family is family, even when it hurts. Poppy arrived with 2 suitcases and a brittle smile. My spare room was small but clean. She looked around, eyes flicking over the second-hand furniture. "It's cozy," she said. We fell into an uneasy rhythm. She slept late, scrolled endlessly, snapped at small things. One night I overheard her on the phone whispering angrily, "No, Mom, I can't ask her. She doesn't have anything." I sat on the stairs, heart pounding, realizing how firmly she'd placed me in her mind. And yet something in me was changing too. The work at the care home grounded me. The people there had lost much, but not themselves. I learned to speak gently but firmly. I learned to stand my ground on a letter slipping through my door, addressed in careful handwriting. It was from a solicitor. I didn't open it straight away. The letter explained what my parents had never spoken about. A trust set up quietly long ago, modest but steady. It had grown carefully managed. It was meant for security, not display. I sat at the kitchen table, hands shaking, reading and rereading. It didn't make me rich, but it made me safe. For the first time in years, I felt my shoulders drop. Poppy noticed the change before she knew the reason. I was calmer, less apologetic. When she criticized the food, I said, "Then you're welcome to cook." When she complained about the house, I replied, "This is my home." The balance shifted further when Maureen fell ill. Suddenly decisions needed making, paperwork, care arrangements. Poppy was lost in it all, overwhelmed. She came to me, eyes red. "I don't know how to do this," she said. So I did. I took time off. I organized appointments. I spoke to doctors. I paid for taxis without fuss. One afternoon, as we sorted through files, the trust fund statement lay on the table, unnoticed. Poppy picked it up absently, then froze. "Aunt Ellie," she said slowly, "what's this?" I told her the truth, simply. Without pride, her face changed. Something like shame, something like fear. From that moment, the way she spoke to me altered. Quieter, careful. She asked before borrowing money. She waited for my opinion. The roles were not reversed yet. They were leaning. Karma rarely arrives with thunder. It comes with mirrors. Poppy's savings ran out. The industry moved on without her. She took a retail job, folding clothes she once mocked. Customers spoke down to her. Managers corrected her sharply. One evening, she came home exhausted and silent. She opened her phone and saw an old memory resurface. Her post about me, the comments, the laughter. She didn't say anything at first. She simply put the phone down. Weeks later, she needed help with rent. She stood in my kitchen, twisting her fingers, unable to meet my eyes. "I hate asking," she whispered. I remembered how she'd laughed, how she'd called me poor. I felt the weight of it. "I can help," I said, "but I won't be made small in my own home." She nodded, tears spilling. I know. The humiliation she felt was not imposed by me. It rose from within her, a realization of what she'd done and how it felt now to stand on the other side. Time softened us. Maureen recovered slowly. Poppy found steadier work, less glamorous but honest. She no longer posted jokes at anyone's expense. One evening she said, "I'm sorry," without explanation. It was enough. I didn't change my clothes. I didn't start shopping differently. I remained myself. What changed was the air between us. Respect replaced amusement. Listening replaced judgment. If you've stayed with this story, take a moment now. Think about the words you release into the world. They travel, they wait, and sometimes they return. If this story touched you, share it. Leave a comment. Stay connected. And remember, kindness is never wasted.